Hey guys, it's Nailbiter, and I've got another World of Tanks commentary here. I finally decided to do another commentary. It's been a little while. But this is a replay that I had from a few weeks ago with the AMX 30B on Serene Coast. This was back when I was grinding 3 marks of excellence on the 30B, and it's a pretty good round, and there are a few interesting things to talk about in this video, so I thought I would add some commentary to it. So one of the first things you'll notice about this game is that I haven't gone to that classic area in the west, kind of around C1, which is where you usually see medium tanks go on this map. You'll usually get a big brawl between the medium tanks on each team in that area at the start of the game. And there are a few reasons I decided not to go there in this round. One, just looking at the matchup, the obvious thing is that there are 3 arty on each side, and the west has very little cover from artillery. So chances are if I went there early on in the game especially, I would get targeted and shot at by arty, and I really wanted to avoid losing a lot of HP super early in the game. The other thing to point out, just looking at this matchup, is that my team doesn't have a great composition for fighting over that C1 area. I mean, the 30B has a decent amount of gun depression, but it has no armor that you can rely on, and it's kind of the same with the 50B. There's no armor that you can rely on and kind of brawl it out over in that area. Whereas the enemy team has an M48, and they also have an E5 and IS-7, and I've noticed a bit of a shift, I think, in the meta recently, where you'll see more often now faster heavy tanks going to that C1 area, and so I really wanted to avoid potentially fighting either of those tanks in addition to the M48, although the M48 actually, it turns out, decides to go east in this map. So instead I've gone to this bush around J8 or so, and this bush is actually really good for getting early lights on the tanks that the enemy sends to the east on this map. And it's also usually pretty good for getting in a couple early shots. It's pretty easy to just get a few shots in, and even if you're spotted, you can just back up to the rock that's just to the right of the bush, so there's not too much risk in taking early damage. So if I don't feel comfortable going to the west immediately at the start of a game, this is usually the second spot that I'll go to, and it's pretty dependable for the most part in getting me a couple at least of shots of damage off early in the game. Now the downside of me going to this spot is that it left the west pretty weak, and as it turns out the E5 and I7 both went west, and they're playing pretty aggressively. So we've essentially lost control of the entire west side of the map now. I was able to kill that KV4 even though I struggled a little bit to actually hit him with a couple of my shots. But we've lost a fair amount of map control at this point, and because of how aggressively the enemy is playing, we're also playing from behind in terms of the number of tanks that we have now too. The E100 and JPZ on my team are still in the east, so I don't really have to worry about losing that flank anytime soon. But since there isn't anything except for that Skoda T50 that's left to engage the tanks that are pushing the western flank, I'm going to have to reposition soon and get into a better spot to actually just defend the base. So you saw me try to get a couple shots into those TDs that were lit in the middle of the map, but pretty quickly I had to just retreat back and see if I could get a few shots on these heavy tanks as they continue to push forward. When you're outnumbered by tanks and you have to play defensively, the best thing to do is to try to get shots in as the enemy keeps pushing forward, but keep your distance from them at the same time. So I wanted to get here to this spot and see if I could get a couple of shots in on the IS-7 and E5 as they were distracted by the Skoda T50, but unfortunately I was a little bit late and it kind of looks like they were behind cover anyway, so I wasn't able to really do any damage to them. And I got one shot into the Bulldog, but since he's pushed up pretty close to me, I'm going to have to just swing back and retreat a little bit further and try to catch the IS-7 and E5 as they keep pushing forward. So my team's down 4-11 right now, which obviously is not very good. But I have a decent amount of HP left, so I can afford to take some hits if I have to. And one thing that you can usually take advantage of when the enemy is ahead by a lot of tanks is you'll generally get a few of the faster tanks to try to play a bit more aggressively or a bit overly aggressive, and you can tend to isolate them and pick them off, and so that can sometimes help even the odds a little bit. So we got a couple of quick kills there, and now I just want to play this corner. I get a nice snapshot of the IS-7, and I know I have a faster reload in him, so I'm going to re-peek the corner just as my reload finishes, and I get another actually pretty lucky snapshot there on the E5. I wasn't really expecting him to be peeking that corner, and I didn't actually think the shot would hit either, but that was a pretty important kill. So the only tier 10 tank the enemy has now is just the IS-7, who's also pretty low. Unfortunately, I lost about 1,000 HP just in that quick engagement, so I want to retreat back a little bit further because I don't want to be trading shots with the IS-7. He has significantly more alpha than I do. As I'm trying to pull back a little bit, I end up actually spotting him out in the open a little bit, and he takes a bit of a wild shot on me, and so seeing that, I take the opportunity to put a shot into him. I already loaded heat, so I'm pretty confident that shot will pen, and now he's a one-shot, so I'm going to see if I can get a kill shot, but the RD on my team actually ends up finishing him off. Now the 704 gets spotted on our cap, and he looks like he's being pretty aggressive, so I'm going to get into a position to get a shot on him as he pushes forward. So I get one shot on him, and then I pull back immediately. And this is where it's important that you're able to just keep your distance, because I can control this engagement with the 704 much better than if I had stayed where I was. And I can just take quick peeks now and make it very difficult for him to hit me. So I waited a little bit, just long enough to the point where I thought I would be unlit, and then I peek again and use my gun depression and get another quick snapshot into him. And the RD actually hits him as well there. So it looks like the 704 is going to back off now, and I want to take that opportunity to help the 50B who's pushed up in the south. So the Scorpion gets spotted, and I'm going to put a shot into him so that the 50B can one-shot him if he has to engage him. And since the 704's got on cap, I'm going to go back and deal with that because I'm pretty confident the 50B can handle the Scorpion. Now if I was pressed for time, I would have just had to go straight back up and probably engage the 704 frontally, but since I know he's the only one on cap, I can take my time and go around and flank him, and chances are that he won't be expecting me to come from a different direction, so I should be able to get the reset without him shooting me at all. So the 50B is able to kill the Scorpion, and now it's just a matter of me taking out the 704 and we'll be in pretty good shape. I was a little worried there that he might be sitting in the middle of the cap, in which case he might have spotted me there as I crossed, but he doesn't light me, and so I'm pretty sure he's just at the front of the cap, and I should be able to get this reset pretty safely. So sure enough, I catch him completely off guard and get the reset and the kill, and now it's just the 3 artillery left on the enemy team. So what just a few minutes ago looked like a pretty bad situation ends up getting turned around actually pretty quickly by me and the 50B who did a good job in the south, kind of clearing out some of the tanks that were trying to push up in that direction. So now it's just a matter of finding the 3 artillery that are left. So a pretty interesting game, I thought. I decided at the start of the game not to go to the typical spot that you see medium tanks go on this map, partly because of the fact that there are 3 artillery in this game, but also because the 30B just isn't good at brawling. I think if I had been in a Russian medium tank or something that at least had a little bit of armor that I could rely on, I might have been more inclined to go in that direction. But even still, with 3 artillery, going somewhere that early on in the game with no cover is definitely a bit of a risk, and I just expect to get targeted by artillery pretty much everywhere I go. Because of how aggressively the IS-7 and E5 played on the 1-2 line, we lost the western flank pretty quickly, and so as a result I had to get back into defensive position fairly early on in the game and use my HP to my advantage and take hits when I had to get the important kills. And fortunately the 50B and I were able to turn the game around. So this 261 is lurking in a bit of a weird spot, and he TD modes me here at the end. And luckily I get a fire on him, so it works out anyway. So that's the end of the game, and let me show you the post-game stats. So this wasn't quite enough experience for an ace tanker, but I ended up doing about 6,700 damage and got 6 kills as well. So definitely a pretty good game. And I think the 50B and I definitely carried the hell out of our team in this one, as we combined got 13 kills and did over 10,000 damage. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.